Hello and welcome back to the Go Cave podcast. Obviously, the scenery is a little bit different today, and that's because we are sitting down in Montreal, and today's guest is a very well-known Montreal local who has not only been killing it on the bike, but on top of that, has been killing it behind the lens for years, putting out some amazing moments with some incredibly influential and inspiring people. Most recently, he teamed up with Dig BMX to show the story behind Pascal Lafontaine. But yeah, Pascal has one of the most inspiring stories of all time. He was Dig BMX's 2019 Rider of the Year, and it is honestly a very big treat to be sitting down with Pierre Gauthier today to talk about the book that he wrote, and there's just so much inspiring stuff behind this. So thank you so much, Pierre. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kevin.
Awesome, yeah. So, I kind of got in contact with you pretty recently. I think I had put a thing out just saying, we're going to be in Montreal, and I think you had either reached out, but I have known about you for quite a while and just all the work that you have done behind the scenes with Dig and everything. So honestly, it's really a big treat to be sitting down with you. Today, we have our co-host, Chris Johnson. You might remember him from one of the first 10 episodes, I think.
I think so.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And guys, if you don't already follow him, he doesn't use social media anymore, but go follow because Chris has some of the best BMX photography in Ontario, in my opinion. He's one of my favorites.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So, Pierre, the way we start the show off is we typically go all the way back to when you started riding BMX. So, tell us about how you got started, the first bike that you had, and some of the people who really inspired you at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll go back like early 90s. So basically, I used to ride dirt bikes like at a very young age. And at some point I got older and the bikes got, bigger. And then it was getting a bit more, I needed more creative platform. And then, I've kind of got into BMX through my sister who bought me like a BMX magazine for Christmas because she knew I loved everything with two wheels. And then I got like a copy of Snap BMX magazine.
Nice. Yeah, Snap was huge, dude.
And in that particular issue, like there was that, I think it was like the Little Devil like road trip, and there's Van Omen in there, like the Dirt Jump and Gary Burns, and I saw this. Actually, that was like 2000, but before that, like I rode like, an old GT Chrome, like trying to dirt jump, and then the Snap magazine happened, and then from there I fell in love with that sport, and then that's where it started.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's cool to see that you started with like a GT too, right? Like everybody that I talk to, they kind of they always have that one bike, right? And something that's really cool is when somebody can get that bike back. Are you kind of like a BMX collector at all?
I'm not a BMX collector. I used to like buy used bikes and, revamp them and just like sell them to people that, really wanted a cool whip. But like, I never got to the point of hoarding bikes. And I kept my first GT, like I still have it in the garage.
Yeah.
And there was like that one bike shop in town called Gendron Sport. And they didn't really carry like, I come from a small town and there wasn't much BMX, happening back in the day. And like finding anything BMX was like kind of like cool. And there was like that one GT on their showroom floor that was there. And it was like end of the season clearance kind of deal. And they had one Chrome GT. Wow, and I was like, dude. I saw that bike and just fell in love.
Yeah, and Chrome, like the whole Chrome thing was such like a iconic thing and so like, I don't know, sought after when you kind of got started as well. Because I think you're about 10 years older than me. So like when I got started, things were a lot different, right? Like it's funny to see how BMX works in general and how within 10 years of like a difference, right? It can be so massive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously, like, where did you kind of get started? What were the parks like? Was there anything that really, you were really after? Were you really into dirt jumping or anything at first? Or just street or park?
First, it was like basically anything I could ride. Like I was riding Flatland in my parents' driveway because like back in Rimouski, my hometown, there wasn't anything to ride back then. And then there was like that one tiny skate park behind the high school indoor, but it was like kind of no bikes allowed kind of deal. But then, you know, they relaxed the rules since it was like school property and they had to let us in. You kind of feel the vibe,
Yeah.
right? So like when I got started with the Chrome GT, but back when I started riding skate park, then it was like the full mid school like triple wall rims, like 40-pound bikes kind of deal.
Definitely.
And like I'd say dirt jumps and skate park transition was like my first real love of like the sport. Like, just feeling like a transition or like a nice, you know, berm and like nice dirt jump with good rhythm, you know. And when you get in that flow, it's like nothing beats it.
Yeah, exactly. That's really cool, man. Was there any like big pros at the time that you kind of looked up to, or was it mainly like local people? Like, it's cool, like, you know, because I've had the opportunity to sit down with some of the biggest names in BMX, and like a lot of those dudes got really inspired just by like the local dude at the park who could blast a 360 bigger than anybody else, right? Like, was anybody like that kind of in your scene at all?
In my scene, there was that guy called Guy Genot.
Yeah.
And he was killing it. Like, I was younger, and I remember him doing like 360s under jumps, and that was the first time I saw anybody do that, like,
Wild,
in front of me.
yeah.
Like, and I was like, just blown away because I didn't know you could do that with like a BMX bike. And then there was like that other guy Martin that was riding with us, and he would build dirt jumps in his front yard. So like those two guys were like a major influence to like get me pumped up of what's possible with the sports. So like locally that was it. But like as far as pro riders, Taj Bielik was definitely like top like one. Ruben Alcantara was like definitely in the top. Garrett Burns, like these guys, like
yeah, all such iconic names and so important to the scene, right? Even to this day, like people really look to Taj and Ruben and Garrett as
Joe Rich.
Joe, of course, yeah.
It's like those guys, they had like a particular style with like the whole T1 team was just, I don't know, it was like raw. They did it for like passion. It wasn't big corporate kind of like, you know.
And not only that, too, sorry to interrupt, but like it kind of still translates to this day, right? Like when you look at the stuff that Taj is doing with all of his artwork and whatnot, right? Like that stuff is so cool and it's still so BMX in a way, right? And then on top of that, like Garrett and Ruben with their most recent Fingers Crossed project, where they're basically just taking a BMX bike, chopping it in half, and trying to make it into a 20-inch mountain bike. That is so like BMX, right? It's so cool that it's like, it's all DIY, right? These guys are some of the most known like dudes over the years for being kind of at the front of the scene, and they're still pushing it to this day, which is really fucking cool.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of like that Matt Hoffman like bike that has like the lawnmower engine in the back.
Dude.
Like it's back then it was just like, hey man, like just hack it up and make it your own, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And like that mentality of like that sport belongs to the riders. It's not like a box that needs to be like square. It's like it can be anything you want. BMX can be anything you want. You see Flatlanders, you see like dirt jumpers, their bikes are widely different.
Yeah, so while you're on the topic of Flatlanders, Montreal has some of the like coolest Flatlanders ever. We met at the park the other day and you were telling me all about some of these awesome Flatlanders. And then I actually was doing some research earlier today and it looked like you had been taking some photos with some incredible Flatland riders from Montreal. So tell us about that, because I think Flatland is something that is just so like off on its own in BMX, yet everybody who rides has such a huge respect for it because it's so incredibly difficult, right? Like I think everybody has spent a couple minutes just, you know, in front of their yard or just whatever, maybe trying to do like a spin on the back peg. And, you know, it just seems so insanely hard. But then when you see people that are just so good at it, it's wild. And yeah. Montreal has a couple people that are just so good.
Oh, we got many, man.
Yeah.
Like we have a big Flatland scene compared to like anywhere else in the world. And like there's definitely like guys that kills it, like the travel. There's GF Boulian, like incredible rider, super
Right.
cool guy. He started his own little business of like doing flatland shows now. So he like travels at like schools and with other like flatland skateboarders and whatnot. There's Jean-William Prévost is a world class like flatland rider, and
Yeah.
like Steve, there's like Gauthier Saint, transplant from France here, rides flatland, kills it. Like there's so many good riders, flatland riders here. It's like we're lucky. We're really lucky because, as you said, like flatland is really particular because the fight is really against your own balance and your own like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like there's flat ground and your bike, so it's like the only thing that's gonna make it happen is you, and you have to have that discipline.
Definitely, yeah. And I feel like with Flatland too, you don't really get the same kind of like spot drama or anything like that you might get within filming a video, right? Like there's certain things where like I've even had to explain it to people, like there's certain respect things where like you don't go to someone's spot that they were trying to do something on and do that trick, right? Where like with Flatland, I don't think there's much of that. I don't know if I'm just wrong, maybe I don't know, but I just kind of feel that like, you know, Flatland might be more of a, I don't know, it's more rare to find a Flatland person out and about, right? So like I feel like if two Flatlanders just randomly ran into each other, it's probably the coolest shit ever, right? Like I don't know, I just feel that kind of way. Where
It
like
is. When you see them like ride together, they feed off each other as well, and they get their run tight, and it's like it. Honestly, Flatland, I believe, is like one of those form within BMX that is still kind of pure towards that. Because
definitely.
when you see another rider, you connect through your passion because you're like, hey, like you're flatlanding, like there's not many of us. So
yeah, it's funny, right? Like BMX is such a niche. And then you're a Flatlander, which is even like tighter. Like it's such a tight community. But yeah, dude, I feel like there's none of that like weird skate park drama where maybe like, you know, you'll show up to a park and these people
there's
are
drama
and
everything. But
fair
like,
enough,
as you said, like it's since there are less of them, like they're basically riding alone all the time.
Yeah.
And like doing it with other people, it just makes it more fun, you know?
Definitely, yeah.
So, and it's flat ground, and just share. You just wait your turn. But, you know, like
I love it.
It's not, you know, like when you gotta catch up your breath, then your buddy goes, and then you know you go after. And it's like, but seeing Jean-William Prévost ride and GF and all these guys, like it's very privileged, man, because those guys, man, they put so many hours in their craft, and it shows. Like they have that style, that flows that go through it. Like they're innovative in the way they're riding too. Like Jean-William, like invented tricks. Like
nice,
still to this day, like there's Flatland trick being invented. You know?
Wild, yeah. That is
which is crazy when you think about it. Like,
yeah, it is cool, right? Because like, when was the last trick within like normal, you know, mainstream BMX that was invented? It's been a while, dude.
Don't you have
bike flip?
Yeah,
thing.
like the front bike flip
People
thing.
have been doing that where they grab the wheel and flip it.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the last ones,
Aside
right?
from that, like
everything else is just like a combination, right? Like I was talking to Drew in the last episode, and like he definitely had mentioned, like, you know, there's some stuff with World's First where like, you know, oh, you're the first person to land this, but it's like 3 tricks that 3 other people created, right? So like, is it really a world's first? Like, yeah, you're the first one to do it with all 3 of these tricks, but like, we need to see some more, you know, innovation and more like people that are inventing tricks. But it's kind of like at this point, how do you, right? It's such a difficult thing where like, there's so much that has already been done, but it also feels like the trick list is so small.
Like, well, what are you gonna do? A new grind?
That's the thing. Like, what kind of new grind would you do?
On?
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's young street riders, and they get inspired.
I love to be proved wrong.
Oh yeah, man! Like, I see those Insta clips sometimes of those young riders pop, and it's like, man, they're really one-upping like the game, like in terms of combination, but then they ride weird spots where it's like you see the spot and you don't see the line, and they see it, which is
Definitely.
like has that creative aspect. So it's like, but in terms of trick, it's true. Maybe you have like some science guy like just in the show that knows like all the history of like
Definitely.
of the freestyle movement, and like I don't know all the tricks, but definitely like somebody somewhere that listens to the show like might
They'll
know
yeah.
all the tricks that's being invented, and but it's interesting.
Hey man, I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure I invented a trick the other day. I went into a crooked grind, and then with my cool rooftop Mike Escamilla frame, I slid the grind plate to 180 out. That's like the new trick, man. That's the goat grind. I want to see some goat grinds, people.
Dude, someone probably did it in the 80s, for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like, who's done it, you know?
Let's pull out some old magazine and
Oh, man, yeah.
dig in it, like, yeah.
I love it.
But there's that guy that runs, like, what's it called? That 2000 BMX, like...
yeah, James, that early 2000s. Yeah, I'm good friends with him, actually. We were just chatting last night. And James is really cool.
It's cool. Like, he's posting a lot of the old footage, and there's gold in there.
Yeah.
There's, like, tricks that people have forgotten in, like, those old VHS.
What was that, 360 to hang 5 on the spine?
Yeah, that's Brian Vowell.
Yeah.
We had Brian on the show. He's awesome,
so
man. Dude, you know what I love about Brian? He is so fucking humble. That guy, like, literally had the coolest attitude. He was so chill and so honored to be on here. And I'm like, dude, you literally did a trick that no one will ever do again. And like trying to explain that to him, he's like, no. There's plenty of people that could do it. They just need to throw on some front brakes and take a couple weeks and they'll do it. And like, I'm literally like, dude, no, like you're the only guy, you know? He's really cool, man. But yeah, with James in early 2000s, he is the coolest fucking guy. He is really, really cool. And what I love about him is that he is so dedicated to that scene, man. Like, he was just like me, man. He worked at an indoor park and got so, like, into BMX through that, you know? His was the flow. And, like, just hearing the stories from there is really, really cool.
I'm glad somebody's actually doing it. Like,
absolutely, it's so needed, man.
And it's, like, sharing this stuff because, like, as you get older, you make references to videos that people have no idea about, or like they only exist in VHS or DVDs, you know, like the Vault, like, and all that, you know, California stuff from like the early 2000s, and like, or like the Low Tech team or the Mush team, like, you know, So Freestyle, crazy good DVD, like. Those things are kind of lost. They're like in their formats, and having like guys like this sharing clips of that, it's like, whoa, like this looks so cool, and then brings back memories too.
Definitely, man. Like he just shared a thing a couple weeks ago. It's like I think it's a thing of a BMX Jam, and just seeing these guys do like, you know, going up the vert wall to one-handed hand plant on the wall, tail whip. And then, like, come back down is, like...
Matt Sparks?
What? Yeah, I think it was Matt Sparks, but it's just, like...
It's
dude, how, you know? Yeah. And then the other one, too, is, like, an alley-oop hand plant on the wall. I think it must have been Matt as well, but, like, there is just so much crazy shit that's going down.
You
and,
ever
like,
seen the tail whip back from Matt Sparks?
I probably have, yeah.
Nuts, man. Yeah. Like, he came up with so many original, like, combination like that. Definitely. It was just like unreal.
Yeah, man, I could go into mid school and like just, you know, talk so much about it because I just love the whole like creativity behind it. And like it's nothing against like, you know, the kind of park riding of today, but I feel like a lot of it is kind of oriented for the Olympics and X Games, which is awesome because that's needed, you know, it is so needed. And like congratulations to someone who can do a triple tail whip over his spine 5 times in a row, because to get to that point, holy fuck, man, that's a lot of dedication. That's a lot of crashing. That's a lot of like, you know, in your own head, will I ever be able to do this? And then one day you're just able to pull it off, right? But I definitely feel like some creativity would be awesome on these courses, man. Like there's so much shit that goes down, and like, Drew had a good point, and he was saying that, like, you know, he kind of knows what people's runs are going to be before they even drop in, because, you know, you see a guy do a backflip triple whip on his Instagram for the last 6 months, what do you think he's going to do, right? He's going to do that trick. He's going to do these like 10 tricks in this run where you kind of need that wild card factor, man. You need something that's going to just blow the crowd away. And Drew was always really good at that. I don't know if you've ever been to X Jam or like Metro Jam, but
yeah,
he is always...
I rode with Drew.
Yeah,
in practice, like at Toronto BMX Jam in the last years, like and I saw him do like I think the early 2000 posted that icepick he did over the window, and like I was there,
dude.
I was there, and I saw this. I was like blown away. Like they didn't show the whole run, but like the whole. Everything he did was insane. Like even in practice, I would see him fly, like just transfer and this like, and the ramp were like, some of them were good, but some of them were really sketchy. Yeah, and it just freaking blasts out of him like like it's nothing.
Yeah, he's nuts, man. Toronto BMX Jam is kind of one of those things that I feel like it definitely has that, right? And it's unfortunate that it hasn't been happening of recently, right? Obviously, they did it at All In Skate Park where I used to work, and shout out to Derek and, you know, everybody behind that contest because it's a lot of work to put in, and unfortunately, like, a lot of people are going to be very biased, including myself. I personally thought, you know, Toronto BMX Jam was so cool because it was a brand new course. It really tested people's skill because up until that 3 days that you had to practice, ride, and compete, you didn't have any other time to really plan out your runs, right? Whereas All In, like, you can just go there and just be like, okay, cool, I'll ride here for 6 months, figure out my line, and I'll take the $5,000, right? Yeah. But, yeah, in general, man, those Toronto BMX Jams are nuts, right? Like, you get those wild card people like Moxley doing the whip to Fufanu on the back rail, and then you got Jay Dalton at the end of his run when it's like the clock is over, he can't even be scored for this, just jumps the step up backwards, but instead of just jumping it, just backflips it. Just like, what? You just gapped from here to there with a step down, and you backflipped it. Just so wild, man. Yeah, I feel like that is so needed, and I wish that we could bring that back. But has Quebec ever had, you know, maybe even just Montreal in general, do they have any big contests like that? Obviously, the Taz would do the Pepsi Pro every year for a while there.
Yeah, well, there was a few like contests here and there. There's Taz definitely trying to push like big time contests, but honestly, it's there's never been any promotion in Quebec for like, you know, like bringing riders much and like, you know, get something going for real. Because most of those companies have their headquarters out of Quebec, so it wasn't really like, you know, a thing to just like invest in the scene in Quebec. You know? So it's like, I feel like the scene has been a bit, how do you say that? Like,
neglected, maybe?
Maybe, yeah. Like, where we were considered as a market instead of like a scene.
Yeah,
so it's, and it's, but definitely, like, there's people pushing for contests. Liam tossed like a bunch of jam that was crazy good.
Awesome.
There's like the Taz definitely got involved in like, you know, a couple contests, Pepsi Pro Am, like deal. And like they're always down. Like when you come with a project for a contest and you like put your resources together, like they're always down to like help and like, you know, be resourceful.
Definitely, man.
But I don't think we had like a big contest where we invited like a lot of rider from outside and just, you know, you toss something serious. But with the Vans Park now, I think that's going to happen. It's just a question of when.
Yeah, obviously with everything going on with COVID and whatnot, it's been kind of hard to do that. But definitely, you know, with that park there and how incredible it is. By the way, for anybody who's interested, that bowl is fucking huge. Holy shit, dude. That thing is deep, it's gnarly, and it's fun as fuck. You were watching me, man. Just send it anywhere. You can go right into the bottom. There's so much transition. Like, you don't even need to go to the top. It's great.
I'm not getting anywhere close to that. Not for me.
Street section for Chris only, dude.
You were looking at it, though.
He was looking.
I did look at it. Yeah.
You did look.
You asked me if I could ride it. I said, no.
It's like, where do I even drop in? Yeah. That bowl is like a minimum of 6 foot. It has to be, you know? But once you get in there, man, it's not that bad. Like, it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed riding there.
You get used to it pretty quick. Like,
definitely.
The first time you ride in it, it's very intimidating, especially like if you're not used to ride like bigger transition. If you're used to like a 4-foot quarter pipe, you get there and you're like, holy crap.
It's way up there.
Oh yeah, it's, the first time I've hit that 11 foot, like I looked at it, I was like, wow, okay. Well, and the coping sticking out a bit, and you're like,
yeah, it's like,
you know, you have that second thought, but then you drop in, you're like, okay. And then after the first week, it's like, okay, it's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and Montreal in general has been getting these insane parks, man, that are just so cool. Like, in Ontario, it's kind of rare to see a bowl that's like over 8 feet, you know? Mm-hmm. And it seems like every park we've went to, there's like some crazy, ridiculous feature that you'll never find. Like, you know, the new Point Claire Park was incredible, and just everything surrounding it was really, really cool. But
well, the way I see it, that from like talking to people and whatnot, is that a lot of the skaters from like the early generation, like now are like in their position of like in the city or involved with companies, and they have kids that now skates, and then there's more of that acceptance of the sport that there used to be. And like we literally had like an explosion of skate park, like good skate parks in the past like 4 to 5 years. But before that, we had those crappy prefab like stuff, and like, you know, we were many years without anything good to ride.
Right.
And then like out of nowhere, like the past 5 years been incredible. Like every city investing, awesome. And it's just like, I think we have to thank like the scooter kids for that, because
definitely
the parents are like, we're dropping it in there, you know, like build more skate parks, and us, we come in and it's like, yes, you know.
Yeah, so like for anybody, you know, that's kind of like against scooters and whatnot, I think the main thing to understand, and like as someone who worked at a park that was very scooter oriented, is that a lot of the people that take scootering seriously get a bad rap because of like, you know, the 4 or 5 year old kids that do it, right? And like the thing is, it's super easy to hop on and enjoy it, and it's also something where like a lot of the parents are gonna have a lot of money to spend too, right? Like there are so many kids that would, like, it's their 7th or 8th birthday, they'd come to the park and they'd bring 20 kids with them, and they would all enjoy it, right? And like for people who love to ride BMX and whatnot, maybe that's a little annoying, but at the end of the day, a lot of these parks do rely on that. So it is kind of like you have to give a little bit of respect, right? Like I always had a hard time with it before I saw that. And then when I started to see like, oh, a lot of these parks wouldn't actually be alive without this, you really start to kind of get it, right? Like there's a lot of people that are against it, but I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Like maybe just, you know, take a kid aside and just be like, hey man, this is kind of what you should be looking out for. Teach them a little bit, right? So
even Joyride isn't specifically a BMX park.
yeah, exactly. It's
most
like
of their money probably comes from mountain bike guys or people coming renting bikes for the day.
Definitely
Kids'
from birthday parties too.
You know.
Yeah, Taz is like a recreational center.
Yeah,
like technically, and like I don't know if it's the right term, but correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. And like honestly, like you go there and there's always like scooter kids, but then, you know, that park wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have like a nice big giant skate park on the island of Montreal, indoor, heated, you know, in a big building as huge as this, if it weren't from the scooter kids.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
It would be impossible to sustain with a bunch of guys like paying, like, you know, a bunch of riders and even skaters. Like the skateboard scene is big in Montreal, but like, you know, it's not that big either, you know, to support a building too. Like that. So,
and on top of that too, right, you got to think about where these people are going to go, right? Like during the winter, obviously you're going to see all the BMX dudes, all the skaters out trying to ride, and a lot of the people are going to be coming after work and whatnot. But what you don't see is like the summer camps that hold these places, you know, they keep these places alive, right? Like it's so important, you know. But kind of moving on from that, the main reason that I'm sitting down with you today is because of Pascal and his huge inspirational story. Pascal was such a huge thing for the scene here, and he was one of your closest friends. And he definitely inspired not just the scene within Montreal, not just in Canada, but I would say a huge portion of the BMX community all over the world, right? And with him taking the win for Rider of the Year for Dig, in 2019, it really just shows that. And you being so close with him, why don't you just tell us about the first time you met him and kind of the vibe that you got from him, and we'll go from there.
Well, we go way back. I mean, like, it was early 2010s, and like, he was so young back then. And basically, like, he showed up at the South Park skate park, which is South Shore. It's more of like a skateboard-oriented skate park, but I really liked it because they use like a different... they use like an old skateboard contest setup that they would put in the building.
Right.
So it was like, legit. And and it was street oriented. So like the first time I met Pascal was there because Pascal was all about street, right? So we would, like in Quebec with the winter and everything, like we ride indoor. We don't have a choice if you want to,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Like, it's part of being Canadian, I guess.
Yeah.
The indoor riding portion. So we met there, and he was just a kid, and I had my head up my ass, and yeah, man, like he was such a nice kid, man. Like, and then I don't know, I saw the energy in him, like. He had the passion for the sport. Like he would just go for it. And I could see it, I could sense it, I could feel it. And I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, this kid is like, he understands it. Like he has that passion,
Yeah.
And then our relationship kind of evolved around that. It was just, our relationship always been about BMX, like, and our passion for it. So like, it like, I don't know, man, like,
it's definitely hard, like
like we had good discussion, like, and I don't know, like, or he got older, then like, like life happened, I guess, where it's like he went to school, and then this and that, and then out of nowhere, man, he started to get really good, like really fucking good, and I was like, I just keep pushing it. I just like, as a rider being friend, and I was older, and I was just like, dude, let's fucking like, let's do it. And he's like, oh, I think I can do that. I'm like, I know you can do it. Do it. And it just go at it. Freaking do it. Like, yeah. It's like, you put his mind into something, he would do it. Like, and land it.
And it's not even just that either, right? Like, you being a photographer, you've always kind of got to be a hype man. And like, Chris will get this, and I kind of get this too, right? You're not going to sit there and tell a person, no, you can't do this. Like, you want this person to get it, and you want this person to be successful. Like, a lot of the times I always feel that I'm like, maybe pushing a little too much. Like, it's just something, but with Pascal, it seems like he was just so good and so talented, where it's like, dude, you got this. Just go for it.
He was talented, but he really worked hard to
get
where he was.
That's important too.
You said something interesting. You said like you need to push, but don't push too hard, and you got to know your limit. And with Pascal, we had that unwritten kind of like feeling the vibe of the like tricks, and does he feel it? And okay, he does. And then you could really sense that connection when you work or ride with somebody. And
definitely.
Then, like, he really evolved fast, and then he got, I think Arnaud got him on Superstar, or back when he had Unicorn distribution in Quebec. So he got his like first sponsorship for Superstar, a French BMX company.
Yeah, they sponsored Joey Baggs and a couple other people too. They're more known in like France, obviously, and kind of over there, and they're pretty good though. Like, they're a good company, to be sponsored by them is a big deal. Like,
and he was young, so that's where like his career kind of like started, and it just started to ramp up, like where he like pushing bigger tricks. He would ride street and just like do those enormous gap, like it like crazy stuff. If you look at his like earlier videos, he would just kill it. Like And I was watching his part, and then I would see like all those pros from California's part, and I'll be like, this is good, like this is crazy, like, and then it got better and better and better, and then sponsors and whatnot, and then we kind of lost track of each other because then life happens, he does his thing, and then and then like yeah man, like it got so good, like he spends so much time like writing and planning tricks, and like he invested, like he was watching obsessively like BMX video. I think we all do as you're like like us. I guess it's normal.
That's been
but
this whole week. We've been like nonstop on our TV. Yeah,
and it's like like, but him, that was his life. Like when you connect with somebody that has that same passion, then you got something to share. And it's like he would show me like video parts, is like, and then I would gauge his style and send him like, oh, look at this guy's like drop. And then I remember, I think I sent him like a Dennis Henderson part of like, what's it called? The one he does the big tail whip drop in that enormous bank, like in the
Yep.
And I sent him this video part, and he told me like it completely changed my riding when I saw that.
Wow,
He was like,
yeah.
I want to like push it even more,
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck yeah, man, like let's do this, So like trying to be a positive influence was like mainly like the goal in my relationship with Pascal. Is just like, hey man, we're friends. Like I want you to succeed. I want you to like be the best rider you can be, right?
Yeah.
So that's all it's been all about,
Yeah, dude, he was definitely he really pushed it, and like not even just from his earlier footage, but like even in those times where like, I think most people would just fold, they'd just be like, nope, it's over, I'm done. He pushed even harder than he did before, which is like incredible. And why don't we kind of talk about when you learned that Pascal was dealing with cancer? So this would be around 22 years old for Pascal, so very young, still kind of in university and college, I would believe.
Yeah, man, like he was at that point we didn't like got in touch for like a little while.
Yeah.
And then I remember sometime I was, I don't know, I went on the computer and went on Facebook or something, and then I saw him like just with the leg amputated, and I was like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
what the fuck happened? Like, and then like I message him right away. I'm like, what's happening? Like, what's, and then he calls me and we start talking. And then he's like, yeah, man, like, I got, like, sarcoma cancer, and it's terminal, but, like, I got my leg amputated, and I was like, and I'm absorbing all this in the conversation, and I'm fucking crying. I'm, like, sobbing, absolutely. And I'm just, I can't hold it. I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck? Like, you have cancer, and you got, like, your leg, like, amputated, and it's just... And it hits me, man, like so hard, because like that guy was like a brother to me. Like it's like seeing my younger brother, man, just like going through the shit, and it really like hurts because
well, he's like family, like
literally, man. Like I love that dude. Like he's like a homie, And then like it's just, I was like, fuck, man. Like he's like, yeah, like. I might have like a prosthesis or something, and it wasn't clear, and then I was just like just so much to take in. Like I was like, okay, man, like let's keep in touch, like dude, like like everything's gonna be alright, like I'm here, like if you ever need anything. And so I kind of left him some space too to deal with this and like the family and stuff, because you don't want to be like, hey buddy, what's going on today, like I just left him his space.
Yeah.
And then not so long after, like he's like really was trying to find like a prosthesis for like a good one, and then he spent a lot of time like with companies trying to find one that fits good and just like holds good, and he started to play golf. Like then he got a bit better. He still had his treatment, but he had to do something, right?
Yeah, of course.
And it's just like a freshly amputated leg with like the prosthesis. So he started playing golf. And he got really good at it, actually.
Of course.
Yeah, that's friggin' Pascal. So he got really good at golfing, but he was like, I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. Like, at least you got something going. Like,
Yeah.
man, stick to it. He's like, yeah, like, I do, like, I golf, but I don't like it. Like, I just... Not that he doesn't like it, he doesn't
It's not the same.
love it. Like he's like, I'm not thinking about golf when I go like in bed at night. Like I don't want to watch golf videos. Like he's like, it's fun, it's a cool hobby, but he's like, that's not my passion.
Yeah.
So he told me like at that point he's like, I think I'm gonna try like riding again. And I'm like, fuck yeah, man. Like you're gonna be the fucking best like one-legged rider like ever. Like I believe it. Like you're so good at everything you do. I know you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, but I really need to find that good prosthesis and like, and then he tried like the magnetic pedals thing.
Yeah, that was really interesting, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but obviously with him and having a prosthetic leg from basically under the knee, you can't feel anything there, so you can't set your foot where it needs to be on the pedal. And obviously within BMX, that is so huge, right? Every time I drop in, I'm like, all right, feet are in the right spot. Even if it's off by the littlest bit, it will ruin your run. So like he had a shoe with magnetics in it that would go onto the pedal. And like, that is such a cool concept and such a good idea in like, that kind of idea. But if you're more of a street rider, it doesn't really work, right? So
that's the problem you encounter. Like, yeah, the whole magnetic pedal would stick on rails and like, and then it would actually be more dangerous than not having a magnetic pedal. So he stopped using it. He said like it would be good for like mountain bikes or like road bikes, like guys that, just ride.
Yeah.
But if you're freestyling, like BMXing, whatever, like doing like street riding, any kind of riding that involved like grinding a metal, like it's essentially a death trap because your leg gets stuck every time on your bike. So
yeah, it's that's got to be so difficult, honestly. And we kind of see that he had obviously sarcoma, and that's like a cancer within your bones, and it was very quick from what I hear. Obviously, they found it, and a couple weeks later he's having his leg amputated, and then he's off the bike for like 3 years because he can't ride. Like you have to wait probably 6 months between then before you can even walk on it, like with a prosthetic, because everything's swollen and whatnot. And what's crazy to think about is just like how he essentially came back and he was like fully for it, and he just went 100% in. And what really changed it from what I've read is that he found a prosthetic where he could adjust the foot and make it fit properly on a bike, where he could literally just take an Allen key, spend 20 minutes adjusting it so that it would fit his foot perfectly in one spot, and then just ride. And he got so good all of a sudden again, and that's so inspiring. And like when you really think about it, it's crazy, man. Like, how involved were you with that? Like, did you kind of get to see that firsthand at all?
Well, I've seen few of his test prosthetic legs before,
right,
and that wasn't really fitting well. But he told me that if he finds the right one, he would actually give it a go at like riding. So
yeah, like a solid attempt.
So when he actually found the good one that had like some spring into it, and like there's like carbon fiber parts, and this is like NASA engineering kind of deal. Like it's
a big deal.
Oh yeah, like it's like pro athlete kind of like prosthesis, and basically he said like, okay, this one works. Like I feel comfortable in it, and like I can feel like the placement of the feet on the pedal, and which was one of the big like thing, as you said. So when he got that unlocked, he's like, all right, all I have to do is like learn back all the tricks. but then, you know, he stopped riding for like a few years. So he went like and had to relearn how to walk, and then relearn how to be on a like ride a bicycle, and then relearn all his trick one by one. So the fact that he was such a high level before, it was easier for him to like relearn them quicker. But it wasn't easier in the term of like you gotta put the hour, because now you have like, you know, that handicap, you know, slowing you down. But he didn't let that thing slow him down. Like he was like, okay, like I used to do it, I can do it again, you know.
Definitely.
So start training, you know, like stretching. Like he really invested himself like 100% to go back at it. And then like that's where it started. Like I remember like give it a shot with his friend Charles. Reminiscing is the guy, he's one of his friends that he started riding with like way back when.
Yeah.
And then I think the first time he went and rode a skate park was with Charles. And I remember like I was a sales rep and I was on the road, and he was like, oh yeah, like I'll be at South Park at like this morning, like riding, I'm gonna try. So I stopped by, like pulled out the car like at the skate park, wearing a suit, walking in like, hey, what's up? Like just look at him ride. And I was like, what, man, I'm so stoked. And at that point he was like fucking around with bar spin or something. And I was like, man, cool. Like, I'm so stoked to see you on a bike. Like, I was genuinely happy to see him. And you could see in his face, he was smiling. It was just like that energy of like, yeah, man, like I'm riding. It's fun, you know?
Definitely.
And then like I saw him at Taz not so long after. And that's when he told me, he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about filming a video part. And like,
wild.
And I'm really thinking about, you know, getting serious. And I'm like, oh, serious? Like, what do you want? Do you want just like a pet project, kind of like, yeah, let's go film here and there? Or do you really want to invest time and just like do something really gnarly?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, the gnarly thing. So I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, man, if you do that, I'll be your photographer. I'll just follow you and just try to shoot as much as I can and document what you're doing. So
Right.
like, you'll always have like, you know, a reason to fucking go 100%, you know, like, so I told him like, I'll do everything I can to help you with this project with my skills in photography. I'm not gonna film, so the filming portion he decided to like handle himself. So he was filming his own part. That was the plan. Like he's like, I got a bunch of cameras, so I'll set my cameras on tripods and just do my thing, and then, you know, like that was the whole thing. And that's where it got started. He was like, he had a bunch of cameras, the idea for the videos, and like the will of a Mack truck, man.
Absolutely. And you know what I absolutely love about Pascal's Dig video part is that he didn't just go into this with the idea of, oh, I'm going to just, you know, do some stuff that I kind of want to do. He went into it with the entire concept of, I want to prove that anything is possible. This guy put out one of the craziest video parts I have ever seen. And I've seen a lot of videos, man. Honestly, like, and to see just how determined he was, and then the editing behind it, and the music and everything is so perfect. Like, I watched that part earlier today, and the song is still in my head, and I know that if I ever hear that song again, all I'm gonna think about is Pascal, you know, ice picking this huge rail, or trying to half cab off the top of Big O. Like, his determination is absolutely incredible, man. And Chris had like such a great thing that he mentioned earlier with the filming and whatnot. So,
well, before we go like full into the video part, the one thing you mentioned about like testing the foot, like he was trying to find the right one. How did he test them? Was he just like trying to ride around a parking lot, and then like you said, the magnetic one was like for rails? Like, did he go out and try to grind a rail and like eat shit, or?
Yeah, basically, well, not in the street, but he had like that tiny rail at his place where he would set it up in the street and try like riding around, or he would hit the local skate park.
Yeah. And
basically like just try to do like, you know, the normal things he does, like try 180, and he rode free coasters. So like, you know, like try different tricks where he would have a certain feeling of it. But I didn't follow the whole portion he was trying out, because like honestly when he was doing that he kind of kept it to himself, because you know, like it's you don't want to build any hopes too, like if you don't find the right one, then you know, like it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
So like he kind of like kept it private, trying different like combination, trying different like lines, and with, you know, and I guess at some point when he felt the right one, he had a few under his belt, so he knew what he was looking for.
Yeah, so like he was still riding, just like keeping it really low key in the driveway and.
Oh yeah, like, and then he started doing like bunny up bar spins, and then he was like, oh, I'll post it on Instagram, and then it snowballed from there. Yeah,
because I can imagine like it must have been. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I could imagine for me it would be so frustrating trying to relearn everything, right? Just like coming back from that and then having something like your equipment failing. Like it would be like if every time you tried to go out and ride, like you get a flat tire or something, right? And you have to go through all that. Like I can imagine how.
That's actually a really good example, to be honest with you, because I think we've all had that experience where we pull the bike out of the car, or like we just get to the spot and then the tire blows, and it's 20 minutes that you have to deal with of just doing that. But that was every day for Pascal, right?
And
it was something.
His leg, not.
That's the thing.
Bike,
it's his leg.
Know?
Like.
Can't just.
Yeah, it's so much different. Like, and what really blew me away was within these couple of years that he was filming this video part, he broke that prosthetic foot 20 times. And it cost $2,000 to $3,000 to fix it every single time. And it got to the point where he broke it, I think, 3 times in a month. And the company was just like, no, you're paying for the next one, dude. Like,
yeah, he had a sponsorship for at the beginning. And then at some point they stopped because they were like, okay, like you're going through so many foot. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, we never had any athletes, like, breaking that many, because the prosthetic leg he was riding with wasn't designed for that, and it took so many massive impact. I mean, you can use all the video. Like, it took so many massive impact that it would just, explode. And for you have that, balance of like, okay, he needs that kind of feeling of the foot with this prosthetic leg, but the downside is it's also kind of fragile for like hard impact. So it's like, okay, like I don't have a choice. There's what he was looking for didn't exist. There was prosthesis to do that.
There's always a compromise,
and that was it. So he blew a bunch of foot.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was 20.
Yeah, it was like 20 different feet that he literally blew up, essentially.
Oh, yeah, I've seen like just like dropping and see like his foot like fly off. Like,
so
I've seen
wild,
like just hear a big crack, like just landing. It's like, oh yeah, the carbon fiber from like the top of the foot like blew or something. So it definitely like it was part of the compromise for doing what he did.
Definitely.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and I mentioned a couple minutes ago that Chris had a good question just about the filming and whatnot. So I've pulled up a photo here which kind of gave Chris the
We'll go back one page.
Yeah.
So I'm flipping through the book, and there's the ones at Olympic Stadium, and he's sitting there and he's clearly going through it. Like he's going through a battle, and then you flip to the next page and there's just a guy like with a cell phone sitting there filming. And I don't know, that like it was such like a serious heavy video project. It was kind of like most pros wouldn't go out and like give it all that and then film it with a cell phone, right? Like some people would be waiting for filmers. And then there's another picture too where he's got a tablet like taped onto a light post. And like I don't know why I expected that like the whole thing would have been shot with like these, high production,
like red cameras, Christian Regal's there.
Oh yeah, there was none of that.
Like it was just a guy and he was that determined he was gonna go tape a tablet to a street post. Like
he would show up and he's like, oh yeah, I got my mom's iPad, and then just bust out the roll of like duct tape and just like and then, all right, let's roll. That was like just it's hilarious, and I shot this because that's the essence of how the production happened. Like, it was just him and his idea. And obviously there's no guy who's like ready to go full time and just follow him and shoot him.
Yeah.
So like, he had friends help him film. Like, obviously he had a bunch of friends coming over, like some session. But the thing is, like, Pascal, like, the thing is, he got told that, you know, he had a few months to live.
He wasn't going to wait.
And then it's like year 3 of like, you got a few months to live. And it's like, okay, I'm doing this project. And I don't know how many time I have left. So every single session counts.
Yeah. Definitely.
Every time we go out riding, it counts. There's no like, oh, let's try and just like, whatever. Like, it's, no, we're going there and we're doing this. So when you come with that state of mind, you can't wait for filmers and you can't wait for people just like, oh yeah, I'll be there. Like, he's not there, I'm busting out the tripod and I'm doing it myself. Like, this was his mentality. So like, when he would text me, he's like, okay, yeah, like, I don't know, tomorrow I'm hitting the spot. Okay, like, good, I'm free. Just come pick me up and then we'll roll there. And then while I would set my gear up, he would set his camera up. And then go on whatever, the rooftop or some crazy spot. And just like get warmed up a bit, look at the spot, feel it, and be like, okay, I'm ready. And just freaking send it.
Yeah, dude, it's so wild, right? Like, in the video part, there's a clip that shows him where he literally breaks the foot off of his, prosthetic. And it's actually at this big 5 block, which is a really, really cool spot. So he tries to 360 this, and what's so wild is that, like, you know, I believe he tried this 3 different times and broke his foot 3 different times doing it. Which
I wasn't there all of the try, because I was there maybe like half of all of the session he rode. I'm estimating here. But like, I was down in like 25 or 26 session with him riding. I went once with him and he blew one of his foot and he said, I'll go back. And I know for sure that he blew his foot again the second time he went. So like, I didn't keep track of like every time he was riding and every time something happened, but definitely like, I know like he blew a bunch of like a foot over. It's weird to say, but yeah, like he definitely went through a bunch, like riding like big stuff like that. That theory was crazy. Like,
well, for people that don't really understand this, like, and this is one of those things that like didn't really translate well to video, was just this clip in general, because I've been to this set and I actually looked at 360 in this set back in 2018, and I was there. And, like, I've 3'd some decent-sized stair sets, some decent-sized drops, and I was absolutely terrified, and I did not do it. And, I definitely think that set is pretty big. It's big, man. Yeah. It's nothing to fuck around on, and it makes sense that, unfortunately, his foot just kept breaking, and it's got to be so difficult for someone who is trying so hard, and they're doing everything right, but the equipment can't hold up. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't just go and get a better prosthetic. He already has the best one. Yeah. Right? So
there's definitely like a frustration factor filming his part, because a bunch of shit happens. Like a normal BMX shit happened. Like cups showing off, getting kicked off, like the whole like normal street riding
shit you
stuff.
Deal with. But then on top of that,
he had to deal with like his prosthetic leg, like just like failing, or like his bike just failing at some point, or like just whatever, or like treatments. Like he would show up like in 1 week and he would be like, I'd say like kind of healthy, like he had hair, like kind of look alive, and then 2 weeks later comes back, no hair, white, like 20 pounds less. And I was like, what happens? Like, oh yeah, lifts his shirt, he has tubes, and he's like, oh yeah, I have treatments, like, drain whatever fluid. And I was like,
that was one of the wildest things to me, just reading about, was the fact that he was literally doing this part in between treatments, where it's like, exactly like you said, right? He would be looking really healthy. He would be out doing this stuff. He would probably try something ridiculous. And then 2 weeks later, you see him and he's just had a treatment done. And like, who else does that, right? Who else is that dedicated and that like, you know, they want this so badly. And I think that's what's so inspiring about his story and what is just so important about it. And like, I don't think that there's anybody else other than, you know, I think this might just be me with BMX, but like people like Julian Milena, people like Pascal, people that are showing that they're doing something that is so impossibly hard in general.
Yeah.
But then doing it with all of these other handicaps is so incredible, man. And like, it's just so cool to see that Pascal, when he went into this, he literally was like, I want to prove to people that you can do anything, basically.
I think he wanted to prove to himself. Like,
yeah.
He, at first, when I was talking to him, he didn't really want to be an inspiration for people.
Right.
He just really wanted to do what he loved.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you have, like, you know, a few months to live and you could do whatever you love doing for those few months, what would you do? Well, the answer is in that book. For him, that's what he loved, man. Like, he was like, I love BMX. I'm going to do this shit until I can't. Literally.
And he did.
And he did. And he friggin' murdered it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm just going to let this slide through and be like, okay, it's going to be a cool video and then that's it, you know? No, that's the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more in it, like, in this story. And it's, like, so rich and so much dedication. What he went through is, like, I can't even describe it in, like, you know, the small text that I wrote. It's just, like, you know, the big lines of it, but, like, the whole story is so much, like, like, he had so much heart, man. Like, he had so much heart for what he loves and the people helping him and like his family supporting him the whole way. Like, that was very like touching to see. Like, I'm like, it's crazy. What he did was crazy. It's like, still to this day, man, I think that's the craziest thing in BMX like ever done.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, man, like, chemotherapy. Like, I don't know how many people you know went through chemo, but you don't want to hop on a bike and drop like a freaking church rooftop.
Yeah, and what was cool is like in his Dig interview, he literally talks about being like in chemo and going through radiation and everything, and he'd be sleeping for basically 3 weeks straight, right? You're waking up for the bare minimum. And then to think about that, and then it's like, okay, I gotta get up and go and do a massive fucking ice pick, you know, or I gotta do this big gap, or I gotta try this 360. Like, it's so mind blowing, right? And like exactly like you were saying before, where you know how much, like, you know, oh, we've only got a couple months left. I gotta get this done. I gotta get this done. You're making every session count. Do you know how many times that I've went out in the 2 videos that I've filmed? 2 full-length DVDs with, you know, 9 to 11 different people, where it literally is like, oh, well, we didn't get anything today. That's okay, though. We got lots of other time. To see that this dude went out every single time to bang shit out and make it happen is one of the craziest fucking things I've ever seen, dude. And, like, it proves it in his video. That dude is such a huge inspiration, honestly.
And honestly, like, my part in this was more of like being the messenger. I was just there to capture the essence of what he was doing, and I was trying to do it like with that perspective of like essence of like what's happening. Like, I'm trying to capture the vibe that he's oozing, and it's kind of hard, you know. You're a photographer, you know how tricky it gets to like you know, capture the essence of a moment. And Pascal would get in the zone and I would just like, you know, stand back, long lands, and like, and he's like, okay, how do you plan to shoot this? And then I would start with the fisheye and then try this and that, and I would literally leave him just in his zone concentrating, and then he would ask me question, and he's like, oh man, like, I don't know, like the landing looks kind of sketchy, and like, okay, like what scares you? Well, there's that thing, and it's like, okay, then don't look at it, just focus on this. And like, okay, yeah, all right. And then go back and just like pumps himself up for like, you know, a bit, and then I just hear like, go. And then it's just like, all right, this is it. Like, he's going. And then, like, just do it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, he just focused all his energy and just like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm doing this. And then, like, at that point, there was no cancer. There is no prosthetic. There's no Instagram. There's no, like, internet fame, whatever you want to call it. There's no, like, other thing than him and his will to do whatever's in front of him. And I'm like, this is what I'm after. This is what I'm going to capture.
Definitely.
And I was just like, put the right angle, wait, and just be like, okay, this is going to happen, and it's going to be friggin' gnarly. And I'm just going to clock in on the camera and just be patient. And just every time, man, he would produce like crazy shit. And I was just like, wow, like,
dude, it's
the trick itself. Like, the trick were crazy, but the layers on top of it just made it even more mind-blowing for being behind the lens capturing it, you know?
Absolutely.
Because when you're there and you see the guy that walked out of the hospital like a few days ago now launching this is just so surreal.
Yeah.
That there's no way I can describe it to someone in, like, you know, a interview or book, or like, you know, it's so powerful, you know.
And I'll be completely honest with you, man. You did an incredible job at kind of translating that and translating this feeling, right? Like, even this morning, I'm going through this stuff, and like, I think what you were saying about shooting long lens and kind of being in that distance far away, you kind of capture everything in that moment, right? Like, sometimes, you know, when you're shooting fish, it kind of translates differently, but a lot of these photos, and this one in general, you know, this double page thing is just so cool to me, because it's him doing this bar into this bank, and you can see the dude up at the top was kind of guiding him, right? Because he doesn't have that feeling. He can't get that crank in. And honestly, man, the photos that you chose and the way that you shot this and everything that's in here, it really brings that emotion, and it really makes you feel in the moment. I definitely, you know, had a couple tears this morning going through this, because it's something that I never met Pascal, but I can just see everything that he was going through within this. And it's something that's just so incredibly hard to go through, and just the way that he went through it and the dedication, and you know, it's inspiring, you know. And you did an amazing job at translating this, so good job, dude.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's just like you said, it's so difficult to get that on paper for others to understand, but I don't think this could have been any better, honestly.
Thanks, man. Even like, I feel that it doesn't encapsulate the whole thing.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
You know? There's still more to that story.
Definitely.
And it's like, this is a portion of it that's captured throughout my perspective of it, like, because it's limited, you know, like, let's face it, like, photography is like, you know, you're still photography within a frame, but it's like, you know, the whole, you know, like, man, it's like, he had so much heart and so much passion for what he's doing, and like, there's no way I can translate that into just like a couple photos. And like, I think the individual photos don't really capture it, but the whole book does, where it's like, because Pascal wrote his text for the book.
That was really important, yeah.
And it's like, that project that we did together, like, that's what it kind of took shape, and I'm kind of saddened because Pascal passed away 3 days after finishing his text for the book, and he never saw the book. Like, he's seen the photos, because I gave him like prints of all the pics, and I was like, okay, like, here's the prints of what's gonna be in the book, and he was super stoked. And he was like, oh, I really like the style and like like the spots, and you know, like you kind of encapsulate the heights of the spots, and like that's what he really liked, because he does high stuff, you know, like high gaps,
Yeah.
and you don't want like your things to look tiny. And he filmed his own part, so he was very critical of that. He wanted to like have a certain aesthetic, and it was very pleased. So like that kind of gave me the go ahead of like, okay, let's do this. And then like he finished his text, and then he passed away, and I was like, I had the photos, and I had his text, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta do this.
Yeah, it has
And
to
he's
happen.
not there anymore. Like it's like the what we live together, the only things left is like my version of it. So I was like, whoa, like how am I gonna do this? Because the like, you know, I wanted the book to stay about BMX. I wanted to stay about like his passion that oozed through that project. And like basically just had to take a step back and just like, okay, like I'm gonna start to write, and then I'm gonna try to make selections, and then skim down the photos, and then go through the whole process. And then, you know, I found the right image. I tried to get like image from every spot we hit where it kind of gets that vibe. And then like just stitching all this together was like a crazy task, like in the middle of COVID, like curfew, the whole 9 yard. Like it was just cooking with the whole story. And then like, you know, I really got back into those moments, looking at those photos every day, like just editing and selections and working back and forth in the project. And then I was able to like, okay, like this is how it's gonna work. Like I'm gonna present, and then, you know, like kind of ramp it through like a bit of the story quick, and then he explains his version, and then you see the image. And then, because at first when you start from scratch, like when you do a project like that, it's like, okay, do I have text for the image? Do I explain the setup? Do I, you know, had like a caption or whatever? And it sounds mundane, but like when you do a project like that, it's kind of important.
It's extremely important. It sets the whole project, right? It's such an important thing to kind of have a theme and an idea, right? Like when I did my video, like my second full length, I had animated skits in between that I literally would sit there and voice and then animate, and then, you know, you're moving everything frame by frame. But it was important that I did it in between each thing because it set a theme. It's the same thing. You know, you have to kind of decide right out the gate what you're going to do, because when it comes to a later point, it's going to be a lot harder to change it.
That's it. Like every project has some kind of flow.
Yeah.
And it's like when you do like a group project, you can always, when you don't have that flow, you can always go back to like the people you're working with, and then,
of course, yeah,
you know, like it get that flow back. But then, you know, my main partner was gone, so it was just like, okay, how do I make this flow, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm like, okay, like I think the images are stronger to speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
And like I was like, okay, let's stick to like intro, outro, just like Pascal's story within this text. Let the image, like, so it became kind of like a photo book kind of deal. And then I had it Arnaud and Charles' text in it, because I wanted to have like their version of like a little something to add, like, because they were there for him too. And it was kind of tricky, because when you do those kind of projects, you don't want people to feel left out, you know, and be like, oh yeah, like you didn't consult me or whatever. So it was a bit tricky to like not like step into like people's toe or whatever. And getting Arnaud and Charles involved in it, I felt like, okay, like it's good, because like Charles was the first guy like he started writing with, and Arnaud like helped him out so much throughout the years. And I'm like, it's important that those guys have like a little voice in this, because
definitely
they influence, like, you know, a major portion of his riding. And you know as better as anybody, man. Like, even if you're a lone rider, like, you still feed off, you know,
Absolutely,
the passion
yeah.
of people around you. And, like, you know, we all have our different vibe, but at the end of the day, like, when you got a good vibe with another rider where he's pushing, and then I was like, all right, let's push. And then, you know, like, you're having fun, and it just, I don't know, man, like, it's flow, right? And that's what I wanted to get with that book. I wanted to get some flow going, and just that it feels natural, and then something that, you know, Pascal would be proud to have been part of, you know.
Definitely. And honestly, if I can, you know, obviously I'd never met Pascal, but I truly believe that if he could see the finished project, he would be so incredibly proud of you, man. Like,
Thanks, man.
this is, it's such a top quality book, and, you know, for $40, this is like the greatest purchase that I've made. Like, seriously, you did an incredible job. The images look incredible. There's nothing about it that's, you know, you definitely put in 110% on every single aspect of it. Even the boring parts where you have to go through like different kinds of paper, where you're like, okay, does the image look better on this or this, right? It's all important. It is, and you did an amazing job. Thanks, so shout out to you, dude. It's honestly good job.
I work with a really great team at Rapido Livre and Rapido Book in Montreal. And they helped me out. They were patient too, because there's a lot of back and forth when you do that kind of project. And it was the first time I was doing a book. I wasn't too familiar with those Adobe program to like you know, lay
it out, yeah.
But my girlfriend Melody like kind of taught me the program InDesign, I think, and she told me like how to lay out, and then from there, you know, like I could actually work things out. And
definitely
just choose the font or whatever like options. So it's like all those little details. Like I wanted to put as much time and effort to reflect the work of Pascal, because he put that much time and effort in his part. So I wanted the book to reflect the amount of time and, like, you know, passion he put in his project. So for me, it was like, that book has to be at that level too. So I put everything I've got in this, and, you know, like, I'm glad you appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. This is by far one of the best purchases that I've ever made, and it's going to be really rad to have this in the Goat Cave at home, you know? I think everybody's really going to enjoy it.
So I got a question about the filming. I think I kind of already have my answer, but do you ever feel like the need to not shoot photos and film for him? Because I've had this situation too, where like you're out with your buddies, somebody's trying something, and like no one really knows how to use the cameras, and you want to shoot a photo, but like, you know, you get stuck on filmer duty. Or did you think that what you were doing with the photos and what you were doing with the book was like more important than getting like a moving angle of something, or like a better second angle?
Well, it's an interesting question, because definitely at some point, like, I had to handle like film cameras while like I was with Pascal, and basically I knew the problem with the videos is that people see it and then that's it, right? And it's like, it was crazy, and then people remember it, and it's cool. It's a cool medium because it encapsulates the emotions. So like you have a vibe of like what happened. You have a perspective of what happened. What I was doing with the photography was more of like trying to capture the whole essence in a different perspective, because Pascal had his own aesthetic for his video, because he edited his own video, right? He did the whole project, like, kind of like MacGyver kind of deal.
And I noticed even like there was a lot of like second angles that had like digital zooms or digital pans, and that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, was there ever something that like you missed having to shoot a photo of because like you needed to film, or?
Not really, because I was always on photo duty, and he always showed up with minimum 3 cameras.
I love that.
And when I
That's
say
so
3
good.
cameras, it's like an iPhone, an iPad, and like, you
Just
know,
mom's
like,
tablet, yeah.
or maybe like 2 or 3, because he had a few, you know, like
Yeah, little
plans.
DSLRs or whatever.
Exactly. And like he would set them up, and then like in the big like gig, I'd say, like he would show up with like 5 angles or like crazy shit with like fisheye.
Yeah.
When he needed follow shot, he usually had one of his buddy come over. And sometimes what we do is like we'd go, I shoot the photo, he would land it, and then he would go back filming it with with like Arnaud or like one of the guys, and then just like can it on camera with like a moving angle because he wanted that fisheye like shot or whatever.
Wow.
So like he was very dedicated into the aesthetic of his video too.
Definitely.
So it was, for me, since I was like, I made things clears with him. I'm like, okay, I just want to handle like photography because I just want to do that one job so good that like I won't miss one shot. Like I don't, and there's enormous pressure because he's not gonna do it like 5 times in a row. Like if he lands it, he lands it, and that's it. You know, he's not. But then again, he would just like, oh, do you got a good angle? Like, and then he would land it and then look his camera. I was like, oh no, it's not good. I'm gonna do it again, and just send it again.
That's wild.
For like a better angle, like it happened, and like he's like, oh yeah, I feel good. I feel it. I can do it again, and then just send it.
So was there a particular clip in general that you can kind of remember from that? Maybe that I could plug in there?
You mean like
he had to go back for twice?
Yeah, well, like one that he landed and then like he didn't
yeah.
like the angle and then went back to it.
There's that hanger he did at the baseball stadium, like bleacher.
Wow.
Like he did that like a bunch of times.
That's insane,
Like,
dude. That's like a death hanger, too.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing on the one side.
Let me think. There's a few of them. Like I have a hard time remembering because like it's been a little while, but there's definitely a couple of technical grinds that he pulled a few times, but the big things like the church gap tire to like bar spin out. I think he did like 3 or 4 times in a row. There's a few like, man, I'm trying to remember. I think an overhanger, like in front of a church, and like he landed it perfect, and he looked at his camera. He's like, no, like I don't like it, and I'm just gonna move cameras around, and then just went and did it like the second time, and I was just like. I don't know, man. Like, this guy was so dedicated, not just in his writing, but to capture it. Like, he envisioned it, he felt it.
Right.
So it was important to him. Because he knew that, okay, it's cool to do it and feel it, but then that's what he leaves behind, right?
Well, yeah, that's what he wants everybody to remember him by, you know?
And he knew that the pros, like, put a lot of time in their video parts. Like, they don't put their first try, they put the one that they land perfect, right?
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted. He wanted to land it perfect. He didn't want like foot slipping, even though he had few in his video. Like, believe me, if he had the option to go back and redo it, 100% he would go back and redo it.
He did an incredible job with that video part, man. Honestly, like, just everything surrounding it is really, really cool, and like just the whole part itself was very, very well done. So like, props to him, man. That's not a easy feat, you know. He definitely did an incredible job.
It's a good part by any standard.
Yeah.
Not like just a good part for a guy who has a prosthetic, or like a guy who has chemo, you know.
Yeah.
Or a guy who's had all 3.
Definitely, man.
Like, it's just a good part for a BMX rider.
Yeah.
Of any kind.
Definitely.
That's what makes it even more incredible, man.
Crazy. It stands up to like almost anything.
Yeah.
It's like you went from like, okay, like you get cancer and then you get amputation, and then relearn how to walk, and then find a prosthetic leg, relearn how to ride, and then relearn to do his trick like he used to, and then push the game. And it's just like, you know, it's hard enough, the whole fucking process, that he had to like just push the limit even further, you know. And that's where he was at when the cancer happened, that's where it was at. He was pushing the game. He was like so good. And then that happened. Like he had the wind in his back and he was just going for it. And then this whole thing happened. So like when he went back to it, he's like, I'm picking this back up from when I left it. So that's what we end up with, like that crazy ass video part.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. And what I love too is just that the scene around here has been like so loving of that, and it's very clear that he had such a big impact here, and especially with the absolutely massive mural that they've put on the wall at Le-Taz for Pascal, and it's one of the coolest things that I've seen, man. Like, you know, it's just really cool to see how much detail and how much work they put into that. How much did you know about that, or were you involved in that at all?
Yeah, actually, I've came up with the concept of the mural, the memorial. My friend Barry Walsh is a skater at the Big O for many years, and he's one of the skateboard veteran in this city. And like he did a few like memorial for Grosso and when he passed away, and you know, Phelps, and he honors like his culture in his own way.
Definitely.
And like yeah, man, like it really inspired me. And when Pascal passed away, like I had a good friend. I'm a good friend with Hess one. And he's a graffiti artist, and he painted my garage, you know, a few times. That's him who did the mural on the other side of that wall. Yeah. And actually, when they did that mural, it was this summer, like literally last summer, before, like, I think before, after. I think after Pascal passed away, like not so long after.
Right.
And I asked him, like, he came with his friend Stair, which is an amazing graffiti artist, like in Montreal. He's like, you know, and those two guys are like crazy together when they work. And the mural, it's them that they did it like on my garage. And then when they came and did it, I asked them like I'm thinking about doing like a memorial for Pascal. Like, you guys would like to get involved, like, you know. And they heard about the story, and they said, we're interested. Like, definitely hit us up. Like, we'll see what we can do when we get there. I'm like, okay, cool. So then I'm like, okay, like things are lining up, and then I'm like, okay, like this can actually work. And then. And I reached them, and they're like, well, it's kind of cold outside, because it was at the end of the season. He's like, it's kind of cold outside to do, like, you know, any paintings. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Like, maybe there's an indoor place in Montreal we can do it. So I'm like, okay, like, I'll reach Taz. Yeah. And then I reached Gislain at Taz, which is a BMX rider as well, as director of Taz. And I reach him, I'm like, hey, Gislain, like, you know, like, I have that project, like, doing a memorial for Pascal, like, would you like to get involved? Like, oh, he's like, absolutely, like, man, like, 100%. He's like, let me see if I can get you a wall, like, I'll call you back in a few hours. So he calls me back, like, not even, like, an hour later. He's like, I got your wall. Like, come and see it, like, Monday. I was like, holy shit, thanks, man. Like, okay, like, now I have a project to do, you know? Yeah. So, like, I reached there, I reached Hess, I'm like, okay, I got a wall, I got this, like, you know, let's come and check it out, see, like, how we can make this work, right? And then we go check the wall out, and then they're like, okay, that can work. So, I reached out the Sino shop, Sino sells graffiti paint here in Hochelaga. Yeah. So, like, I reached to him, and I was like, would you be, like, kind to, like, sponsor the mural, you know, the paint for the mural? And he was down. He was like, yeah, man, community, like, let's do it. Like, I'm getting you the paint. So, like, I got the paint, and then I reached to Vance to help me with, like, you know, fonts, like, you know, scaffoldings and all that stuff. Right, and, you know, pay the artist as well, you know, because they're putting in a lot of work, a lot of time. Work, man. Like, it's, And the wall that just like gave me like is freaking huge, so like they really put in the work there.
Yeah.
So I got Vans involved in the project, and basically like yeah man, like it started from there, and then like it was all planning and just we picked the photos, they did the montage, they did their own style through it, and they're like trying to do something that reflects Pascal. And like you said, it's a job, man. Like they were asking me like about personal stuff about Pascal, so the piece reflects his personality, and like there's a whole process through it. It's not just like, okay, let's slap something on a wall and just call it a day, right? So yeah, man, that project was very like how can I say it? I felt like it had to be done, because I'm like, everybody feels this, but like I don't feel like it's gonna happen if nobody takes the lead, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's me, right? So like, let's do this. And then lined up everything, got the mural painted, and then we surprised Pascal's parent. We invited them to Taz. They didn't know about it, and we brought them, like, we put a huge partition from the mural, and we're like, yeah. I invited them. The reason why I invited them was that Taz wanted to get involved in Pascal's, like, story.
Of course,
and all
yeah.
that. And they came over, and then we moved the partition wall. It's like, yeah, like, the reason why we brought you here is because we made something for Pascal. We moved the partition wall, and they saw the wall, and they were like, like getting very emotional. And the artist was there, and Vans representative was there, and it's like very like cool stuff, man, to see like all those people that work on the project and their parents there, and like super honored. Like it was like, man, like it was really good. It was
Absolutely.
really, really good. And like for me, it's like the whole scene has that good energy, that good vibe, like, how can I say, like, influence from Pascal's, and it's like, it's just gonna, it's wind, it's just gonna fly off, and then, we're gonna move on and do our life. But then if we can keep something from this and keep the inspiration,
just a reminder,
yeah, like a positive reminder, not of the suffering and not of like the bad stuff, but like of the fight and the achievement he achieved. Like, this is worth remembering. And I'm like, that's why this mural had to come to life.
Absolutely, man. And what I love too is that everything you're explaining is essentially just a community coming together because of one person, right? And to see how much he's affected, like, the scene in such a positive way, not just in Montreal, but all over the world, man. There's so many people that like have absolutely fallen in love with everything that he's done for this community, right? And I'm absolutely one of those people. Like, this is one of those inspiring stories that is so important, and it makes you honestly rethink some of those days where you're just at the park like, I don't know, like,
I'll do it next time.
yeah, it's like, no, you're gonna do it today. You gotta, like, it's really so needed and so important. And the fact that you were able to be there and document this is one of, like, the best things ever, because you did such an like amazing job with it, and you're the perfect person for it. I don't know if anybody else could have truly, like, really gone into it and done as much as you did and was as dedicated to it as you were. So good job, dude.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
It like strikes home, man, because like I said, man, this guy was like, for people, he's like an incredible rider. But for me, it was a friend,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just that dude that, like, when we were at the park or whatever, riding together, like, we just connected, and it was fun. It was genuine fun. It was just that. And that's what BMX is all about. All that drama and bullshit, it's nothing.
At the end of the day, BMX is all about just being there with your friends and just getting that moment, and pushing yourself and just Dude, it's so important, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
those are the moments you'll always remember. You'll never forget those.
And it's most people don't understand BMX the way we do, and that's why they don't really understand Pascal's video part.
Mm-hmm.
But when you know what's involved, you know, and you look at his video part, you're like, this is
It's incredible, man. Honestly,
this is crazy.
It's a
Like
piece of
this
art.
is crazy.
Yeah.
It's like so surreal that there was never anything remotely like insanely done as this, like ever, like in any sports. Like I don't want to, like, there's probably like crazy stuff that's been done, but this is like top. Like this is, he couldn't have done more than what he did. He did literally everything he could. Like he gave 100% to this project.
And he was on the top level still.
Still.
Like, you know, one of the best.
Definitely.
100%, man. Like he could ride like with the best, man, and like, dude, like the stuff he did like was insane. Like it was so high and so big and sometimes so technical.
Burly. Yeah.
Just it was a statement. Like he had his own style, and he, like, you know, you just the will to like improve, the will to just land shit and just you know, like do stuff.
Absolutely.
Sorry if I swear a lot.
No, dude, don't even worry about it. We do all the
Edit
time.
this.
Yeah, you don't even just tell me, man. So this wouldn't be the Goat Cave if we didn't talk about, you know, a specific clip. And one of the things that I absolutely love was his ender. And just to kind of put this in perspective for everybody, this is a 21 stair handrail. And, you know, there's a weird, crazy bump at the beginning of it. The stairs are not ideal at all. The run-up is absolutely terrible. And I can verify that because I was there in person. Yeah, it's absolutely massive. And Pascal iced it. So were you there for this clip? And if not, I know you know kind of the backstory behind it. Why don't you tell us about this massive ice pick? Because it is just so wild. It was just mind-blowing.
Big disclaimer, I wasn't there when he did the ice pick, because or else I had the photo. And it would probably end up on the cover page of Dig if I did, because it was so crazy.
That was the wildest thing.
But the story behind it is the first time we got there, he told me, like, okay, like, I have that line I want to do at the hoe. I really want to cab down the Big O. I was like, this is big. Like, this is, and the Big O, you've been there. Like,
it's like a
cement. And it's like,
it's an 8-9 foot drop. It's big.
70s cement. Like, it's hard as rock. Like, that thing is, you don't fuck around with. Like, the local skater there will tell you, like, this spot will kick your ass.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so hard if you're not careful. So he's like, I want to cab the Big O. And I was like, all right, that's some serious business. He's like, I'm keeping this for the end of the season because I know I might get really injured. I'm like, okay. So we show up at the spot, and he's like, well, I didn't tell you, but I have the Saputo rail in mind. So we're at this truck, like, parked up there at the Saputo parking. And then he's like, we're like mid-afternoon on like a Wednesday, like some fucking like middle of the week kind of like business hour deal. So he's like, I want to try the rail. I'm like, that's a big friggin' rail, man. He's like, yeah, like I brought like that, whatever. He had carpet, like rubber carpets and woods, like piece of woods he put to, like, you know, shim the spot so you can actually run up. So he start pulling the stuff out, and he starts setting it up, and like do a couple run up, and security just like bust out in seconds, like, sorry bro, like, you can't be here. And he's like, well, I'll have to come back, right? So we pack everything back up, we roll down, and then tries the cab at the, from the top of the O. Heats shit, like so hard, like 4 or 5 times in a row, like falling on his ass, like so hard. On the 4th try, he's like, I'm done. Like, I'm not trying this again, like, today.
Yeah.
Like, not even, like, at all. Like, just today. Like, he's like, I'll come back and do it, you know? I'm like, okay, make sure you call me when you do it, because, like, I really want to get this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, yeah, we'll see, you know, like, maybe next week. So, next week's come, I'm out of the city. He texts me, I'm like, sorry, like, I'm like 5 hours away. Like, I can't be there. Sorry, man. He's like, I'm doing the Saputo rail. I'm like, good luck, dude. Like, you're gonna can this.
Yeah.
And I have no freaking clue he was going for a icepick. At first, I thought it was just one to double, like 50-50, just like straight down or like, but I had no clue. And then, you know, like, he cans this, and then afterwards, like, we chat, and he's like, man, like, look at this, and he shows me the clip. I'm like, did you fucking heist this? Like, and I could see that he's like, first try, like, I sent it, and I wanted to, like, feeble, I think, or something like that. And then he ended up locking as an ice pick. Like, it wasn't
So
even meant
wild.
to be an ice pick at first, but, like, as he went down, he sent it and locked it. And as he locked it, he was like, okay, this is it. Like, this is an ice pick, right?
Yeah.
And it just, the whole thing, and just rides off. And he's like, this is it. This is my Hender, man. Like, it's...
It has to be.
And I'm like...
Take it. For sure.
I wish I was there. Like, I wish I would have been there.
That's
but
definitely one of those moments, man, you know? But
it's just like...
it happens.
Yeah. I missed a few of his big bangers, but, like, you know, I couldn't be there for all the session, obviously. But
Definitely.
from, like, you know, that was, like, a big one. Because when he canned this, it was like, he really felt like his video part was up to quality.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, like, now I have something to show.
Absolutely.
I have something I can, like, you know, leave and be like, okay, like, I'm really proud of this.
Yeah.
Because this was, like, 100%. Like, it's...
I
You've
love
been
it.
there. You've seen
It's
it.
massive. It's huge.
It's
Like,
mental.
it's a rail that most pros would go to and be like, whoa, like, I am not touching this. It is huge, dude.
Yeah.
It's
it
a
is
leap
gnarly.
of fate, basically.
Yeah,
It's-
honestly, anybody who is interested, and if you're in
No
Montreal,
way.
go to the Olympic Stadium, find the Big O, and you'll find it. It's pretty close by, and it
the
is
Saputo rail. It's up on the
It's-
soccer stadium on the
yeah.
side.
it is crazy,
It
dude.
is
Tell everyone
big.
where it is, because no one's gonna step to it. So.
Yeah, that's the thing, where it's like no one's gonna touch it. I promise you
We'll
that.
give you the address in the description below.
Absolutely,
Go
I will.
and Google it. Do
Yeah.
whatever. Like,
You're not allowed to ice pick it. ABD.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, his ender was a big part of, like, feeling that he accomplished his video part.
Definitely, man. Yeah, getting that ender is it's always the hardest part, man. With the video parts I've filmed, it's always like you gotta find something that scares the shit out of you. You gotta think about it for a long time, and you just gotta get it done.
And until you have it, you feel like your part is never finished. You
Absolutely.
feel like, man, I want this, you know?
Yeah.
And he was at that point where he knew he wanted a banger, but his options were limited too, because, you know, you don't have like a bag of, like, you know, 10 bangers on the fly, you know, the
Yeah.
back burner, like, oh yeah, I'll pull this one out. And then, you know, he had maybe 2-3 spots in mind that he knew he could do. Like, we actually went and scout spot for his Henders, like, big stuff.
I almost feel like if you're not going into the trick thinking, okay, this will be my banger or this is my ender, then what's the fucking point? Like, seriously though, think about it, man. Like, with the stuff that I've done, like, and the stuff that Pascal has done, you kind of have to think of it as like, okay, I'm going into this huge thing. This has got to be my ender, right? Like, you have to know before you do it. Like, if you're not thinking that this is your ender, then use it for something else. But honestly, to really get that full satisfaction, that full feeling, you need to know that this is what it is. And I can definitely, like, say that Pascal must have known.
there's like 2 or 3 clips that he can, and he was like, okay, like I think that's my ender. And then every time he would one up his game.
That's the coolest shit
and
ever.
It's like, yeah, like I already got my ender, and then he would come with something even crazier, and it's like, man, like this part is getting gnarly, like this is getting serious, and like his cut off clips were like crazy writings, you know, like his leftover clips are nuts, like it's good stuff.
I would love to see some of those. I wonder, are they out on the internet at all, or is it all like,
I know he did like he re-edited like some and then posted it through like a making of kinda, but I know like Pascal's parents have like the hard drives with all the medias in it.
Yeah,
I haven't really asked them anything yet, like about that stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But I feel like if
fresh.
somebody would really want to do like a documentary kind of deal about him or whatever, they could actually supply like
definitely
media about it.
It's important that they keep that and hold on to it, you know.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of work in those hard drive.
Definitely. Yeah, those are like kind of the last moments that they have too, right? So it's important.
Okay, because I didn't want to jump in, like we were kind of in a flow. But you even mentioned like at Vans Park, like fish, like you have to get so close, right? And then you said you'd start with fish. And there was some, I don't know if they're fish or wide angle in the book. And then you'd kind of like back off and like let him do his thing. Do you generally like shoot more wide? Like a lot of the pictures had like lots of room to like breathe. They were very open. Is that like your style, or were you just like backing off, letting him do his thing? Like,
it's interesting. I guess it's part of my style of photography because I like an image to give that certain vibe where it's like you get the subject, but you want the subject in a context.
Yeah.
And it's a photo could be something specific or it could be a story. And basically when you capture a subject in the context, then you have a better idea of what's going on or what's going to happen. And that's anticipation. It's like I'm putting something in your head that's not there yet. And if you're a writer and you look at a picture of a spot and you see a rider, and then all the crazy ideas run wild in your head. You're like, did he do a bar spin? Did he gap this? Did he do a 360? It's like you're building up that, you know, kind of like expectation, kind of like, you know. And with the project, I use a variety of lenses. Like my wide angle is the 14-24 that I usually like crank up to 14, just get up close and then, you know, get really wide. But then it's limited. Like what I mean by limited is that when you start deforming your photo, you change the vibe of the place. Like like you've seen fisheye shot of spots and then you go there and you're like, that's it. This is it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I didn't want to give that impression. I wanted to show the real vibe of like, okay, you show up there and it's like 15 stairs and you see the picture and it looks like 15 stairs and it looks scary, you know? And I wanted to capture that vibe where you see where he lands, you see where he takes off. Like you have a vibe of like, okay, this is a really shitty takeoff. Like it's not just, the trick is not just what he's doing on that rail, is that half-inch gap for just before, or like that crack, or like the shingles on the roof that are ripping off, or like, and you want to capture that essence because that's part of the trick. The run up and the landing is as much as part of the trick of the culmination of that trick. So like the apex, which is like usually the photo of the mid trick, if you can capture that within the context, which is like where he launches and where he lands, then you got the whole story. You get the whole trick. You get how gnarly the spot is. Then, because we've seen picture was like, oh, it looks easy, and then you go there and like, holy crap, like this is insane, right? Well, if you're a good photographer, I believe that you can capture that gnarliness as well. you know.
Definitely. I think this photo here, actually, of the tail whip into the bank is a good example of that. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah.
But just how you're so kind of far away, you can kind of see everything within it. I think that that's a great example of exactly what you're explaining.
And from an artistic point of view, it's kind of shitty because there's like bathroom in the back, like portable potty, you know, like, and it's
But
like
from a BMX standpoint, that's the coolest thing ever.
and that's it. Like for me, like I ride, and that's the shit I want to see. Like I want to see the whole bank. I want to see how high it is. I want to see this. Is it steep? Does it look fun? Is it rideable? Is it high? Like, you know, and then I want to encapsulate all that in every single shot, every single composition, which was very demanding because then you take an angle, does it work? And then, you know, he bails. Okay, like, look at the picture. Well, you know, I got the shot, but, like, the angle's not cool. Since he bailed, I have another try at it. So, like, shift perspective and then change lens and then, you know, until I find the right one. So every single time he would bail or, like, launch out of a trick, I use the opportunity to improve the composition every single time. So like it was a constant flow of work. Like what I was doing there was doing photography. That's all I did. But the way I did it is just like trying to push like more and more to get the quote unquote perfect angle from my perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I quite like that style. Like I think it's kind of, you know, you see a lot. I think the fisheye is like a less serious lens too. Like even just like shooting pictures of your friends like working on their bike or whatever, it just has like a very less serious look to it. And then like as you probably know too, you get over like 6-8 stairs or whatever, the fisheye almost starts to make it look smaller. And when you can really back off with like a long lens.
Definitely.
It's definitely a different vibe. Like I have a 8mm in my bag. I bust it out once in a while when I shoot small transition.
Yeah.
Like especially skateboard, small transition, man, 8mm fisheye looks big, it's perfect.
Yeah.
You know?
That's, what it
but it like you said, it looks a bit less mature too. Like especially like sponsors and companies, they're putting less and less fisheye photography in their ads and their content. They like go for, you know, like more long lens stuff because it looks more quote unquote professional.
Yeah.
So like it does have an edge to it, but to use fisheye. But I think if you're shooting action sport, you need to be well-rounded in all those categories.
Definitely.
And it's like, don't get me wrong, man. Shooting fisheye is hard. Like making composition, like great composition with a fisheye is tricky because then you got everything in your lens, right? So it's like easy to just like be like, okay, you stick it in and then it works. But the reality is like, okay, well, if you want that effect with the stairs or like you just want to have the feeling where it's like you got the heights and you got to lower it and then whoops, like I clip my head and like, you know, like all that stuff. It's a craft.
Absolutely.
And you have to get in there. It's more like when you shoot fisheye, you're in the action, literally. And when you shoot like medium to long lens, then you stand back. You're not in the action. You're capturing the action from far away.
That's a really, really good point.
You're less involved in what's going on, but it doesn't make it any less important the way you frame it and the way you capture it. You know?
Definitely.
So that's the theory behind my action sport photography. That's like either, you know, shooting this was challenging, but like shooting Flatland is even harder because it's always flat ground. And then, okay, you can play and have like different backgrounds and whatnot, but then getting very like creative with it, you really have to like, you know, study your subject and work with a writer and just like practice and develop like a certain, you know, perspective through it. So like, you know, working with, you know, skateboarders, flatlanders, street riders, like shooting all these kinds of sports, it really helped me out, like, you know, pushing my limits and finding those, you know, different types of angle, you know, and refining, I'd say, my style in terms of like composition.
Definitely. Yeah, man. The whole book is incredible, and like Chris was saying, these photos that are in here, like with that kind of pulled back feeling, is just so good, man. That's like exactly what you need for this. I love it.
I think like the only wide I saw was like a rail at night that was lit up, so it's like there wasn't much else going on to capture.
As
like,
a trick, yeah. It's I got a few wide angle shot, but it's more like lifestyle kind of deal where you kind of feel the vibe, and I like to use a wide angle shot for that because, you know, you get close with the rider and they're sweating or whatever, and then you want to capture that, you know, the closeness of the area of what his environment is.
Yeah.
But then you also, like, this one was wide angle, you know.
Definitely.
And like, it's not fisheye, it's wide angle.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference because fisheye is like 180.
Yeah.
And it really deforms the image.
Yeah.
And wide angle is like deforms it too, but like you get a better sense of the proportion.
Yeah.
I love a wide angle. That's what we're rocking on the old A7, dude. I love it.
Yeah, man. It's the best. You still got that crisp, sharp, you know, focus. So yeah, it's every photographer has their style, I'd say. Like, it's every filmer has their style, and, you know, I'm not claiming to have the right, you know, formula of like photography or whatever composition. I just do my thing, man. I love writing, I love photography. I mix the two together, and that's what I end up with.
Definitely, man. It looks incredible, honestly. Good job.
Thanks, man.
I love it.
I mean, like, you're clearly an artistic person. From like, even from the first second I saw you ride at Vans, you know, your mini bike, your truck, you know, all this stuff. Like,
Definitely.
do you think, like, you ride like a photographer, right? Like, you have the style and the nice, you know, the nice wall ride, get it, like, you know, roomed out and stuff. Do you think, like, your riding affected your artistic, like, side, or do you think your artistic side, like, affected your riding? Or is it just, like, everything mixes together,
That's a good question.
right?
That's a really good question. I'd say my passion for BMX definitely made me see life through a different lens from the start. And that obsession with the sport and this passion that grew with the year kind of like, I don't know, like, it's like everything mixed, like, at some point where like my love for motocross freestyle mixed with BMX, and then the photography and the style of like what I think looks cool, like, you know, I have vivid memories of like guys like Eddie Cleveland and just like seeing like Jeff Z's photos, and like I just like, man, like, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you see one photo and it just makes you want to go ride. Like, you just see that pic and you're like, man, like, I just want to hit a bank and just freaking fly off, like, blast a whip or something, and just, and it kind of internally becomes like your own, like, your hero. Like, you're like, oh man, I want to be that guy. I want to, like, you know, push myself and do something as cool as this.
Definitely.
Right? So like, you get those different influence that either from whatever sports or whatever, and I think that's where it's important not to be a purist. Yeah. And just 100%. Let, like, you know, the
influences or
the influences, like, who's through your style. Like, I got influence from skateboarding, like major influence from skateboarding, major influence from surfing, major influence, like, you know, like dirt jumping, like transition riding, photography, like, you know, Harley Davidson, like you name it. Like it just mixed in my being, and that's the outcome, I guess.
It's
Absolutely.
just what you think is cool. It's just how it happens.
That's
Definitely.
it. It's like do what you love, and then who's that?
It just comes out, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not trying to be that. I just am that. Like this is what I love doing. Like the carves you see me do, it's like this is the best feeling in the world for me. Like this is what I love doing, and I'm doing it alone. Usually I just go there by myself at like 10 in the morning when there's nobody, and I just do that for 2 hours straight. Like I don't want cameras, I don't want a crowd, I'm not posting on Instagram, I just do it for fun, you know? And,
I love it.
And that's, if it's important and for you, that's, nothing will come between you and that passion. And for me, like, you know, it's not a bunch of likes or like, you know, peer recognition that's gonna change that. I don't need to be on a, you know, mountaintop shouting that I can do stuff. Like you go and do it, and that's what I love doing, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, man, that's really rad, and you can see exactly how that plays into just everything that you do within BMX, which is really, really cool.
Thanks,
love it, man.
Well,
Still working on those third downs though, but they're coming.
You'll get there, man. You'll get there.
Oh, I'll get them back.
Favorites.
Yeah.
It's honestly been incredible to sit down with you, Pierre, and just to hear this whole story about Pascal and everything that you guys went through together, you know, is really, really cool. And just to see how like dedicated Pascal was, and it really translates in the video, but when you sit down and you speak with you in particular, like you did such a great job at just explaining it all, you know?
Thanks a lot.
There's a lot of those moments that I think everybody wanted to know a little bit more about, and thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Thank you both for giving me the opportunity to like, you know, share the story.
Absolutely, man.
You know, like you did something incredible, and the least we can do is actually, you know, like share that energy, share that good vibe he had. You know, he had that living flame inside him. And all those pictures, all those footage, the mural, whatever, man, like the memories, like they carry that flame. They carry that passion, you know, and that's what we gotta hold on to, man, because that's what life is about. It's about like having a good time with people in the present moment, and like that's what Pascal was all about, and we see what kind of result like we got from that.
Definitely, dude. I normally do a question at the end of this to finish it off, but honestly, just what you said there was so important, and I think that is kind of where we gotta leave it, man. That was incredible. Thank you.
Thanks,
you know,
man.
that makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of people really resonate with that. So, yeah, thank you, everybody who's listened this far. Thank you so much, Pierre. Please, if you have anything you want to shout out, any thanks you want to give, go for it now. We'd love to hear it.
I'd like to thanks Vance for helping me with the mural. I like to thanks Hest1 and Stair for helping me with this amazing piece. Pascal's parents to be there for their sons, and all his riding friends like Marseille, Bike, Le Cribs, 514 BMX, all these guys. I'd like to thank Dig for giving me the opportunity to, like, you know, share Pascal's story through their interviews, and also supporting the book. It was very touching to see that these guys, even though like they had their own, you know, grind and all that, they took the time and they were like, yes, we want to get involved, this is important. And like I felt like, yeah, man, there's like some good, you know, like passion in Dig. Like I could feel it that they wanted this story to be out. And
Definitely.
So like, yeah, man, shout out to guys at Dig, definitely. And honestly, anybody on the BMX bike, man,
hell
go
yeah,
have fun,
I love
man.
it. That's awesome. Yeah, Pierre, thank you so much for sitting down with us. And if you guys have listened this far, I please urge you to go and check out your website and pick up one of these books. This is by far one of my favorite things that I now have in the studio. And I own Stu Johnson's VX from Anthem 2. So I'm like, for this to be one of the favorites, that's a pretty big deal, man. You know, definitely best $40 I've spent in a long time. Head over to your website and pick one up because it's so important that you get one of these. And honestly, I think the story really translates really well through this book. You get to see a lot of those moments that you just don't in the video, or you can't really appreciate, right? You just can really sit there and see exactly what he was feeling. So, yeah, honestly, pick it up, guys. And thank you, Chris, for co-hosting.
No problem.
This has been rad. Definitely. We got to have you more on the show.
So,
fuck yeah, I love it.
Man, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
I think you summed it up pretty well. So
definitely. And yeah, Pierre, thanks so much, man. And we will see you in the next one. Peace.